we've really focused over the last 8-9 years on photorealistic 3D animation. So it's creating a product that doesn't exist for our customers. They're trying to develop a new idea, a new prototype. We can bring that to life with 3D animation.
You talk about you create a memory. When you watch a feature movie, when you go to the cinema, when you watch anything on you scroll, you feel it. But when you put it into that immersive experience, you retain it stronger.
And I always think, even with AI and things like that, and especially even with virtual reality headsets, some people can be negative about it. You've got a headset on, it's too heavy, it's whatever. But it's the worst it's going to be. I say that all the time with any type of technology. Gillian, welcome to 29ers Unscripted. Today I really want to focus on the reality side of our business across that service. So let's dive in, let's ask some questions, and we'll start with, our customers ship tons of equipment around the world to show products at exhibitions. What if they didn't have to?
Well, they don't have to. With augmented and virtual reality, you can put their complex products, very large pieces of manufacturing equipment, you can put it inside a headset. And that's where the real beauty of realities actually gives, particularly for the types of clients that we're working with.
And they get more out of it, I suppose. Using virtual reality, they do get more out of it. They can walk through it, they can take part in it, they can see what's inside, that event space within the virtual reality headset or the product that they've built. It's
actually an experience, because what you're doing is that you're taking something that's highly complex, and often the real science is at the most micro level. It's at the most precise level, and that's where teardowns come in, because you can take something and explode it, and then you can go inside. It's a really fantastic way to be able to show something that's highly specialised.
And if you think back, it was back in 2019 where we kind of really immersed ourselves, excuse the pun, really immersed ourselves in the sort of virtual reality world before most of the industry was paying attention in that space. Why did we see it? And why did they not see it back then?
Well, I think, and I'll be really genuinely honest here, at 29, we wrap ourselves around our customers' needs. And if our customer needed us to, just create video content, create posters, if that's what the customer needed, that's what we would create. That's why we've been in business for so long. What we seen was what the customer needed that wasn't available. So we wrapped ourselves around the customer need, and we developed that service. We innovate constantly.
Yeah, you were just about to use the word, but innovation. I think we work with the world's biggest customers who innovate for their customers, and it's our job every day, every week, every month to think of what's the next innovation, what's the next step forward for them. And back then in 2019, it was like, we can see how virtual reality could play a part in their world. And how can we start to bring that? But we also know it takes time. It takes time, and we are very early adopters to technology. But when you're working with global businesses, you just have to sort of drop some seeds and just let it happen. And I think it's taken that time. But so back in 2019, we did kind of see that things were changing. But even at that point, it wasn't about, for us, the headset. At that point, it was Oculus. Nowadays, our focus is in Apple Vision Pro as well. But it's less about the headsets and more about the experience. So we always talk about the headset as the agnostic part. We don't prioritise the headset. We prioritise what content can we bring to that headset, what technologies does that allow us to do, but ultimately give that experience back to the customer.
But also what changed the game was the pandemic, because the pandemic made so many organisations, particularly the sales teams, not have the ability to be on site with their customer. So being able to create digital assets that represent their physical assets, that's where I think that was a huge turning point for the 29ers.
Yeah. And our realities obviously covers kind of three key areas: 3D, augmented reality, and virtual reality. So it's not just virtual reality, it's the 3D side of it, it's the augmented and virtual. How did we land on those three?
Well, again, it's always been, we wrap around what the customer needs. And if the customer comes to us with a problem, my role that I absolutely love is when the customer tells us what their most complex problem is. And then we think, how do we solve that problem creatively? And 3D animation, even if you think, Kevin, going back to when you and I first met, when you and I had that blind date when we started our first business, I would sell it, you would make it. And you would build it in 3D. So we've been doing 3D since way back in the day.
Year 2000, I first built my first 3D model for our business, for our customer, and the journey just continued. But I think for me, those three areas, the 3D, the AR and the VR, they just stacked together now, because you touched upon, like, we've really focused over the last 8-9 years on photorealistic 3D animation. So it's creating a product that doesn't exist for our customers. They're trying to develop a new idea, a new prototype. We can bring that to life with 3D animation, and it's super photorealistic. It's actually hard to tell the difference, what's real and what's not real. But then it evolves. When they get that 3D part, they then look at, right, what's next? Well, let's make it augmented reality. Let's put it into a real life environment. Let's put it on that table. Let's put it on that shelf. And augmented reality allowed us to do that. And then, as I said, back in 2019, the next medium then evolved, which was like, so how do we take it from 3D to augmented to virtual reality? How do we put it in that headset and create that space? Now, again, that can be a small product they're developing, or it can be a whole space they're trying to develop. But when you put it inside virtual reality, I always say, like, when you see something on a screen, like a tablet or a laptop, you watch it, you engage in it, but you're not fully immersed because the world is still around you. You're still taking in other things. But when you watch something in virtual reality and it's as brilliant as what we do, it becomes a memory. It becomes a real memory. You feel as if you were there. But when you watch that same thing maybe on a screen, like a laptop, you see it, you believe it, but you don't feel it. Virtual reality, I believe, makes you feel it and then generates that memory. It's as if, like, I was there, I remember that.
And then if you think of, we do that for our customers, but our goal is for our customers to do it to their customers. And that's the bit that I'm always very focused on. It's dead easy to come up with really creative ideas, but if it doesn't land on a commercial objective, customer won't, they maybe do it, but they won't get benefit from it. So our goal is to always focus on where's the value proposition. And by putting these types of technologies in front of, as you already said, some of the world's amazing, largest, phenomenal customers. I get so passionate when I talk about our customers. It is such a treat to be able to work in this space.
And the fact that they trust us with innovation, we touched on that. And they allow us to come with ideas, and we do that every quarter. Even we go to the US every quarter, and our job is to bring new ideas and surprise and delight our customers. We talk about that, like excite them, give them something to touch or feel or experience. And I think that's really important that we as a company, especially now, continue to innovate. And that's the part, as much as we are both excited about our customers, but my natural excitement comes with innovation, it comes with technology and how that shifts and how that changes. And those three elements, as I say, 3D animation now for me is 26 years old as a concept when I first started doing it. Augmented is in the last 10 years. But the really exciting part is how we're blending those three together. So it really is like, it's one asset that we build, but it's 3 stages we can put it through. And until you really, I keep saying, until you feel VR, if you've maybe tried it a good few years ago, promise you, try it again, even with the latest technology, Apple Vision Pro, it will become a memory, it'll become a real life experience to you. And we can bring that to life with your product or your environment that you want to recreate.
But one thing that always sticks in my mind, and when I think about, even as you're talking here, I'm thinking about all the customers that we're currently working with. Inside these organisations, there is some real genius people who have got innovation at the core of their being. When I think of, I've got one client who comes in, when he comes into the studio, as soon as we start talking, he's up at the whiteboard, he's drawing, he's seeing, he takes our ideas and then he owns them, he makes them his. And that just fuels creativity. And that's what happens all the way through our studio, particularly when it's something that is so new. But I always try and ground it and keep it grounded on what's the value proposition here.
I think that's the spark for us. Obviously, we don't exist without our customers, and that's the spark. So you talked about that. They come in, they draw on the whiteboards, traditionally, their ideas of what they're trying to generate, and we take that from there and we literally bring it to life. So through prototyping, and this leads on to my next question about prototyping first. A client wants to test a product that doesn't exist. What does that actually look like? How do we bring that to life? How do we take their concept idea, the whiteboard, the drawing board, and how we bring that to life using prototyping through those services?
Well, it's exactly as you say. The tools that we have to be able to translate something that's a written flat 2D image to make it 3D, to make it come alive, to be able to turn it, twist it, explode it, go inside it, feel it, experience it. That's what we do. Yep. That's your skill.
Yeah,
that's what we do. And I look at it from what does that say? Yeah. What does that mean? And how does that add value? And how can our customer commercialise that?
Yeah. I think the word I've overused for the last 5 years is photorealistic. And that's always been the purpose when we do 3D. But if you think about it, they've come up with a sketch, an idea, a blueprint, and we literally can drop it in a headset and they can be walking around their own product before they've even taken it to any form of engineering. We can let them see and feel it and touch it and explode it apart and look at every micro detail and then reverse engineer that back towards the engineers, towards then their team and how they actually build it. So it literally, as I was going to say, it's an unreal experience. It literally is an unreal experience that we're starting to build now across those 3 services. Mm-hmm. And it's the experience that it gives, as I said before, to then believe in that product more because they can see it, feel it, touch it. And as I say, it's a product or it's an environment. It can be a lab, it can be a science lab, it can be equipment within that science lab. You can walk around it. You get a sense of scale. It's human scale, as I said earlier. It's if you watch it on a laptop, you don't get the sense of scale. We all do that if you go to a big event and you take a photograph and then you try and show it to someone. You go, it just didn't capture it the way it was, because when you're there, there's so many other feelings. And because now even in virtual reality you have spatial sound, so you then feel the sound coming from different directions. So that's where just that full experience. But as I say, it starts from that sketch, that idea, that blueprint, all the way through to the 3D animation, to the augmented reality. And that's really important. Again, we've all used augmented reality in some way. You see it all the time now in retail. If you want to buy a chair or a sofa, you can click it and then you can make it appear in your house. So it's becoming a natural thing. What we're bringing to enterprise level now is the natural feeling and experience of virtual reality.
Yeah, but even if you think of, I totally agree with you, but if you think of the way that we've carved the service offerings of 29 studios across, realities, marketing, content and events, they all intertwine with each other. And as you said, when you were talking there, often when you've got something on a screen, you don't get that fully immersive experience. But often that's the need. The need is to send something quickly to allow someone to consume it. So we've carved out the service offerings across these 4 areas that intertwine. And our job, our absolute goal of every single job, every single brief, is to maximise what's the best way to get the customer's message in front of their customer to give them a commercial value. And that's when then you will really weave in the best uses, either augmented or it's a video or it's a slide deck.
Yeah, it's exactly that. When I say, obviously we're focused here on realities, but in the content side of our business, not every piece of content belongs as augmented or 3D or virtual reality. But for today, it's more like what that experience can do when it does cut across those mediums. It elevates that experience completely. And then obviously another layer of virtual reality especially is training. It's training an individual, training a team, and what changes when you train people inside a headset instead of a classroom. And we've had that experience with clients as well. So it is a huge change. They actually, as I said before, they actually remember it, what you experience. You can replay things that would cost a lot more than traditional filmmaking. Talk about health and safety, talk about fire, sort of escape training and things like that, to recreate that with a film crew and things, whereas you can regenerate that in 3D inside a headset and actually play those scenarios out and repeat the same scenario every exact same time to see how people react, what they do. So that for me is like a really specialised area within the virtual reality is the health and safety side of things. So if you get anything you want to comment
Absolutely.
on that.
Well, if you think of health and safety, there's so many different filming techniques, even things that we talked about. I think it was actually a project that we were talking about yesterday where you can freeze and you freeze the experience inside. So having the ability to be able to give a trainer in a company who owns that responsibility of health and safety, it's one of the most serious and deep ownership tasks that you will have working in a manufacturing facility, because people's lives are at stake. So being able to reinforce that message, and it was actually two gentlemen that we worked with many years ago, and the passion and the knowledge that they had in health and safety. It was way back in 2014 when we worked with John and James. Yeah. And they were with Chivas at the time, and they both retired and moved on to other things. But it was the decisions that have to be made in the split moment. Yeah, you have to retain that.
Yeah, because as you say, lives are at risk.
You have to retain it.
But I suppose with virtual reality, you can make a mistake that doesn't that doesn't cost a life or doesn't cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
But the important part of that, I think, is you can repeat that procedure 100 times without moving a person or a piece of kit. You can repeat that moment, as you talked about, that technique that we are developing behind the scenes, is that freeze frame technique. So yeah, a fire starts, then everything freezes, and you have that decision making. So it's like multiple choice. What do you do?
Yeah.
And you can recreate that for every single person.
But it goes back to the memory, and you talk about you create a memory. When you watch a feature movie, when you go to the cinema, when you watch anything on you scroll, you feel it. But when you put it into that immersive experience, you retain it. You retain it stronger because you feel that exact moment in time. And that's where I think from a health and safety point of view, that's going to be really valuable. But that cuts across multiple industry sectors. Even you think of the highly regulated industries where they cannot make a mistake. It has to be factually and 100% accurate. That's where 3D, particularly the truth aspect of 3D, becomes really valuable because it has to meet that 100% non-negotiable. Great.
Yeah, and we've talked about the truth part. So for us, the truth part is we build it in 3D and Cinema 4D, and that has to be spot on. Whether it's a product or an environment, has to be physically accurate for a customer. So it's, that's what we call the truth. And then the filmmaking part, whether that's AI filmmaking or whether it's actually go out and do the actual filmmaking. So it's blending those things together, but delivering that asset into those different experiences. Another pillar that we obviously talk about is the experience. We've spoke to Caitlin about events recently, and that whole experience at event. Where we're trying to come at now is bring a different level of experience to events, as well as all the other things, but bring realities into events. Because when you do then go to an event, an exhibition, you tend to then spend a lot of money at exhibitions, and part of that is building the stands and things. But people bring equipment. They have to bring, especially in the manufacturing world, they have to then ship equipment to those events to demo the equipment. That costs a lot of money. And then obviously in today's world as well, it's not very sustainable and not very practical from a logistics point of view. So what we're obviously talking to our customers about is how we bring that immersive experience to trade shows, to exhibitions. So again, you can have a little area, a small little space, rather than a whole massive floor trying to show that equipment. We can put the customer at the event inside their lab room, inside their manufacturing plant, and it's at scale, as I talked about earlier. So we really deliver that full experience. Say, why don't you come and see our manufacturing plant in China? You might be at an event in Rome or in America, but we want to show you how we operate in China. And you put the headset on and you're standing on the factory floor and you feel it. You get that memory, you get the sounds. Unfortunately, you can't get the smells right now.
That will come.
But we bring that to exhibitions now. So it's a new way of, and then it's also like people turn up to exhibitions, they're always trying to deliver more for them. It's the traditional way just now is all the banners, leaflets and things like that. But putting a headset on, especially how real it is, how memorising it is, or mesmerising, we can bring that kind of equipment to that event.
But then also what it does is it lives on.
Yeah.
So if you think of you when you go to an expo, the expo does cost a ton of money. And to have the best stands, to shine bigger than the competitor, all of these are the unsaid things that happens at event planning stage. How do we stand out? How do we look better? How do we capture the audience attention? And bringing technologies like augmented and virtual into the booth just gives another creative edge. But more than that, it has to deliver an ROI, and it has to be able to deliver something beyond that event. How impactful would this be for a manufacturing company that has a walk-on to the stand for them later to send them a $300 headset, but it's got all that technology that they can then put deep into the heart of their potential customer for $300.
Yeah, and things we've built, obviously augmented and virtual, is like a full car. We built a full car, and you can sit inside the car, you can see all the instruments, you can see the technology behind the dashboards, you can do all of that. So it's from the smallest of product you can interact with to the biggest of products, like a car. But bringing that to trade shows and exhibitions, putting the headset, it's just a whole new experience for a customer. And as I say, putting someone right in the middle of your factory in China, or you're about to say something.
Keep
go
going.
for it. No, on you go. On you go.
No, but think of it this way. There's lots of different disciplines within the creative industries, and you have lots of different creative agencies that do one specific thing, and they really go down and they go deep into that one particular niche. Where I think, and this is going off script because I know it's unscripted.
Well, it's unscripted.
I know that, but it's going off script from what I was originally going to say. We always think about the customer's need. And I know I've said that a couple of times, but when you take the tools that are in the market and that are available, we've carved our business that really cuts across all the toolbox and all the disciplines that a business, and we're very fortunate to work in large enterprise organisations, what they need. And it's the trust element that they then give us by sharing their deepest complex problems to help them fix that. And I'm not saying that we come in with a magic wand, but we're a wee small part of that.
Yeah.
And I really, really enjoy that and value that they give us that opportunity.
That's why we've just celebrated our 17th birthday.
Yeah.
That's why we're still here at 17 years, because we do care deeply about, first of all, our team, and then obviously our customers. That's really important. But it's going back to device-led, obviously. We work with Oculus, we work with Apple Vision Pro. Those are our two main devices right now. But why are we so loud also about not caring? Although internally we need to care about the devices. So the customer, like for me, the customer shouldn't care about the device. Obviously, they care about the outcome. That's what the customer must care about, is the outcome. But for us to deliver that outcome, we need to care about the device internally and figure out the best way forward for the customer.
Well, that's knowledge and training and skill to be able to have all these tools in your toolkit.
Yeah, but we've always said, I'm answering one question here, but I suppose we've always said to our customer that don't you worry about the device, but also don't be fixed if we talk about it's Apple Vision Pro. Next year it might be something else. Our job is always to prepare them for the outcome, give them the best tool that they can get the outcome from.
Well, given your alignment with Apple and how much Apple's been a real hardcore part of your entire life,
I mean,
it'll take something to really go higher than Apple Vision Pro.
It is the best device right now. It is the best device from a clarity and just experience point of view. But they'll get better at it. And I always think, even with AI and things like that, and especially even with virtual reality headsets, some people can be negative about it. You've got a headset on, it's too heavy, it's whatever. But it's the worst it's going to be. I say that all the time with any type of technology. This is the worst it's ever going to be, the Apple Vision Pro, the Oculus. But we're focused more on the Apple Vision Pro internally because it does deliver a better experience. And we use that word across all our business experience. So that's where our focus is. And from that little tech moment, it's 8K, it's 4K in each eye. The Oculus is 2K in each eye. So it's just a different resolution. But then it's a different experience, a different user interface. It's Apple-led. And then that's where we're trying to put our content on that. And we've got multiple pieces of content right now on the Apple Vision Pro for our customers. And it's amazing to watch them use it because they literally can tear apart a product in an augmented way. Although it's a virtual reality headset, we can build that product, as I've said, from a sketch all the way through to 3D and then put it inside their environment, place it where it should be. And then a lot of our manufacturing customers make the smallest of parts for those products so they can then look inside that and walk around it. And Apple Vision Pro right now, at this point, delivers the best experience. But again, my job is to look at, well, what's next? What's next? Is it the newer Apple Vision Pro? Is that a different product altogether? So that what we're delivering for the customer is the outcome and not like I'm doing just now talking about the device. But that's my job behind the scenes. So that's really important that we look at that all the time. And that goes back to the surprise and delight part that we deliver for our customers. Bring those devices to our customers, let them decide, but let them decide on what fits them, what fits their purpose for their event, their exhibition, their internal operations as well. So I'm kind of, as you said, I geek out on that a little bit. But clients still do ask whether it's a toy or whether it's genuinely ships value. How do you answer that one? Like, it still can be perceived as virtual reality is a bit of a novelty to some people, but I think it's just because they've not had enough exposure to it. So they do sort of bracket it as a little bit. Is it still a toy?
If you think of enterprise, education and entertainment, they're the three words. And it was Tim Cook who, when Apple Vision Pro was launched, he released a video on YouTube, or it was released on YouTube, and he talked about the focus was education, entertainment and enterprise. And at the time when it launched, no one knew who was going to take up this market. No, not take up the market. Who was going to be the leader in this market? And then about 12, 18 months later, when I went back to look at the research, to look at the numbers, it was phenomenal. And I think it was, I'll not be precise, but it was around about the 30% mark that was taken up of the Apple Vision Pro model was enterprise. Now, enterprise market was probably not the biggest target, or maybe it was, I'm not Apple, but to be able to watch it from a creative content producer's perspective, to see that landing at the enterprise level, then bounced to education, then bounced to entertainment. When it launched, when you put it on, when you got the demo, we got the demo when we were in Miami, and we were blown away by the entertainment value. And we then spent maybe 6 months taking that to our customers and showing them that entertainment value. But we then transferred that from entertainment value to enterprise value. So
and to
big thank you to Apple for providing the tool to do it.
Yeah, but if you think about the benefit of just, again, being generalistic about VR especially and what it can do, if you combine, we talked earlier about our business combining the content marketing, realities and events, but if you then combine the realities part, as we said, the 3 parts, the 3D animation, the augmented and the virtual, that combination, whatever road you go down or the path that you follow towards VR, what it does do is help you sort of create fewer prototypes. Think of the amount of prototypes if you didn't go down the 3D route. So you have to start at 3D, and then it's whether you progress to augmented and virtual. But you just don't need to create as many prototypes because you can see it and you can feel it inside.
Particularly the heavily expensive prototypes that are really heavy engineered with lots of really bespoke custom tooling. And sometimes when you get into some of our customers, the tooling alone could be like thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars for tooling to just try it, and then they realise it doesn't work and we need to change it. So that could be such a waste of revenue.
Yeah. So it's the fewer prototypes, the faster decision making, because I've recently trialled then, it's almost again on the Apple Vision Pro, it's like a FaceTime kind of thing, but you can then share that experience if you've all got the Apple Vision Pro, and you can be looking at the product in an augmented reality way with a Vision Pro on, and you can make decisions faster collectively from something that only exists in 3D but on a headset. So again, without any prototypes, you're getting faster decisions. You're not then having to move the device around for everyone to have a look at it and come up with their ideas. It's all done collectively on the headset. So faster decisions, fewer prototypes, and then no freight charges. We talked about that, the sustainability aspect of it. So giving people a demo of the product, of a future product or a future environment without having to build any of it, and help make decisions faster on that. Yeah,
I mean, the one thing that does stay with me is when you think of how we adopt technology and how our customers are adopting technology and how their customers are. Right now with the devices are, a fixed particular hardware piece of equipment, but that's only going to get better. It's going to get better with time. It's going to get more slimline. It's going to be more easier to be transferred between different users. But we're in a digital and transformational arena right now, and it is mind-blowing what's happening in the creative industries. And I have actually been speaking to quite a few peers within the creative industries who are terrified of what's going on in the creative industries. I am so excited, and my biggest regret is the age I'm at in my 50s. I wish I was in my 20s, although I caveat that because I've got the experience of coming through my 20s, 30s and 40s to have seen it and felt it before the internet exploded and before we went through Web 2, Web 3, and we're now in Web 3. Where I really play a lot of time in my head is about metaverse and where metaverse is going. And yes, back in 2022, 23, when I did the blockchain strategy program, metaverse for me was, I was learning. I was learning where it was coming, where it was going. Even now, when you think of virtual reality, and that's the topic of today, having content, reality content inside an environment, the environment being the headset. But when you're inside that environment, where is that environment? Is it a metaverse? Where is that metaverse? What's coming down the line with that metaverse? And how do we blend that? We are not even scratching the surface yet. This is a game changer. I think
that's where we'll both probably, in this little short conversation, showed where our geeky points are on the metaverse, and then obviously from me, from a technology and a creative sort of design and technology part. But from a customer point of view, to help them experience those realities. I think that's just the key for us, is like we're trying to showcase this more and more to our customers. And as I say, we travel the world to do that, and just to give them that next step forward. So I know you're trying to interrupt, but I need to finish this point. So we're really trying to just kind of push that forward a little bit, but not force it on them, because no one likes things to be forced on them, and especially headsets. Let's be honest, at the first kind of try on, you're a bit uncomfortable. Once you experience it and you know the benefit of it, you then adapt it and adopt it better. And I think this is into my last question now, is I think that's where change will happen. And as I said, the headset, all headsets feel uncomfortable to start with. And it's like anything in business or in life, the more you do something, the more it becomes a habit. It's not quite the habit, I think, for the type of customers we work with to put headsets on every day. It's not that habit.
But it's becoming that.
But it's not that we're trying to force that either. Today's not about let's all wear headsets. Those things are going to change. They're going to become lighter. It'll be glasses. It'll be all sorts of things. The virtual reality world will then become around you without you realising it's there. We can't even imagine where it's going. Like we've talked about in another conversation all about AI and how the speed of that's changing. Obviously, hardware takes a bit longer, but even like we talked back at the very first question, it was in 2019. Obviously, it was before that, but 2019, we started really thinking, what could we do with this Oculus? To only like 6 years later, so it is a long time in the world of AI, but it's still only 6 years. The development, the virtual reality headset for Apple Vision Pro is developed. So I just think we need to just keep pushing gently to our customers the experience, the memory it creates when they put these headsets on. And I think it will completely change over the next year or two as well, that experience become better. And for all the reasons we talked about sustainability, about shipping freight, about prototyping, faster decisions, that's all the benefits it brings. And we just need to put that experience in front of them. And I think that's where we're gaining the traction of people starting to talk about it more to us, because we've created that 3D animation, and then we're taking that 3D animation, that product or that environment on a journey across augmented reality to virtual reality. But it's still that, like, what devices and technology do we need to use to get there?
Yeah, but that's where we keep it real.
Yeah.
We keep it real. We don't whatever the word is. Bamboozle. We don't bamboozle our customers with all this tech jargon. Behind the scenes, they don't know, and they actually don't care. What they know is...
They care about the outcome.
They care about the outcome. They care about how can we get their products in front of their customers to help them commercialise their incredible innovation. That's what we do. We keep it real.
Well, keeping it real is that we've managed to keep this conversation super precise, super
30
short.
minutes. Wow.
And
that's a first.
So my last line would be, from a virtual reality point of view, like, don't ship the kit, ship the experience. And
Absolutely.
That's what we need to do. We ship that experience instead of the kit. And that's across all the services of business. I think experience, trust, knowledge, and innovation is the heartbeat of what we do, and including reality. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
In this little short conversation.
Thank you. And one last thing I want to just say, just before we finish, I had to say it. You mentioned the year 2000, so 2026, that's 2026, that's 26 years.
No. Yeah,
26 years since you created that first animation.
Yeah.
It was actually before that, because I remember in 1992, you bought your first Mac.
Yeah.
And you sat in our bedroom, because we got married really young and then with Caitlin. You were in our bedroom and you were spinning.
This is the
Shell
part.
You were spinning Shell Helix bottles for Avery Dennison and Cumbernauld.
Yeah.
And that was in 1992. So that was 8 years before we actually even thought, let's turn this into a business.
But that's running on here. That's just what I mean by that's our job, is to, in the background, innovate until it's ready. And we've been doing that, especially in the reality side. Yeah, you could go back, but 2019 was that kind of shift because COVID happened. We had to then think of new ways.
In the context of a business,
But that's what we've been doing since 2019. That is 7 years later, that we've just been constantly kind of learning and developing as the hardware changes, but then just constantly giving those little experiences to our customers. So
1992 to the year 2000, that was an 8-year journey of real innovation. And in between that, we started our business. We started to work together. History repeats itself. Yeah. That pattern and that trend
leaves clues, as I say.
But that pattern and that trend is happening again. And it is so exciting.
So that's where we now finished. I think Realities is a key service that I'm really focused on, along with that combines with the AI side of it. And I think it's just, let's bring that innovation to our customers across the Realities service. So thank you very much.
Thank you. That was a really good conversation. Thank you.
Good. Cheers.